So this is a really weird video, but it's mostly opinion related. I don't really have any particular facts and reasonings to this, so if anyone wanted to shoot this full of holes, they probably could, but here we go. You guys know who I am, E.T. Templar, Alien Crusader from Beyond the Heavens, here to entertain and destroy through the power of me magic. So, the simp problem, right? There's Twitch thoughts, there's OnlyFans, and there's even women on OnlyFans that are making fucking millions of dollars. And here's what I think caused the simping problem. So, you know this shit about participation trophies, that's not really a new thing. That started in the 90s, which I was born in the 90s, and I was raised up through this self-esteem bullshit, right? This horse shit that the schools and maybe even parents set us up for failure because we were told repeatedly that you were special, you are far more special than anyone else, you special little man or special little girl, right? And we were pumped full of bullshit, and we were set up just unintentionally from the beginning to fail, right? So throughout all of our lives, we had people blowing smoke up our ass, telling we were special, and this is what led to the simping problem. And that's not the only problem. That's why there's mass shootings, there's other issues, violence, and other heinous things that happen because unintentionally, like, we were an experiment with this new form of thought. And when we got out of high school, we fell straight on our face because the real world doesn't care who you are. The real world doesn't say, oh, you're a special little man, you're my special little woman, right? That's not how the world works. So we were set up with this false reality that, again, smoke was blown up our ass from our teachers, our parents, our family, and other members. And I think that's why millennials just, for the most part, have such a big problem, right? And during the same time, you had the Ritalin horseshit, right? You had kids who were just by nature just energetic, couldn't pay attention, and just, what's that special? Precocious. Kids were just precocious, and even more precocious for whatever reason during the 90s. Maybe there's something in the water or something environmentally. But kids were more excitable. So society decided, let's shoot these kids out full of Ritalin and other drugs, right? So, of course, some of these kids started getting A's and B's, started focusing better, and then these parents went, oh, he's doing so much better now that he's taking Ritalin. Well, lo and behold, when these kids got 18 or 19, they didn't make it. The Ritalin fucked with the chemistry in their brain, and other drugs fucked with the chemistry of their brain. And they just didn't make it. Now, I was blessed with parents fortunate enough that let me be a kid, to let me be a precocious kid with ADD and ADHD. They didn't see fit to just dope me up on horse shit pushed by Big Pharma. And that's probably one of the reasons why I'm not as fucked up as most millennials. I think that's the main issue, that most millennials, through Ritalin or other psychiatric drugs, it messed up their brains. It messed up that very peculiar chemical balance, and that's why a lot of millennials took up drugs, drinking, and that's probably why a lot of millennials over time throughout their lives from the 90s or maybe even earlier have killed themselves because, unfortunately, through circumstance, through society, through this participation trophy and low self-esteem bullshit, we've had a hard go. Other generations didn't have this, right? Other generations, and I'm not making an excuse, other generations had it far worse, okay? I'm not saying millennials have had it worse, by no means. I mean, the 1900s, the Spanish flu and that shit, the 1860s, the American Civil War and other shit, no one's really ever had it easy by any stretch of the imagination. I'm just saying, millennials were in this time and involved in just a failed experiment where when we got out of high school or even during high school, we got in these situations where life just smacked us right in the face. And again, the funny thing is, the same people who push this self-esteem participation trophy horseshit are the same ones telling millennials that we're worthless, we're garbage, we're low tier, that everything is our fault, even though the average age in the Senate is 52 years old. Somehow all this is our fault, when the previous generation, again, has done nothing but vote along party lines. And so it's a multifaceted problem that just hit millennials all at once. And the preceding generation's going to have the same fucking problems. Because millennials are going to maybe be vindictive or not as great parents, right? We're going to have the same flaws. But the thing is, having respect for yourself is how you triumph. Embedding yourself in some way or the other is how you triumph and overcome, how you overcome these mental issues. Of course, it's not going to be the case for everyone, because unfortunately some people are just so in the barrel, as it were, to where I don't even think bettering themselves or having self-respect will save them. There's unfortunately just some souls that, through the same experience from the 90s and even sooner, were just, for whatever reason, the dice of fate, they rolled snake eyes and the world went, fuck you, kiddo. And that's the main thing. That's why I can't, when people shit on millennials, that's why it just irks me to no end, because not everything is our fault. Some of the preceding generation has to take a little bit of blame. And I think that's why millennials have such a problem. This is just me, a shithead that's a millennial that was born in the 90s, rose up and had to contend with this shit. Yeah, of course, preceding generation, that's not that, World War I, World War II, Vietnam War, right? But still, it's like, come on. Every generation has had its struggles and problems, and millennials have just had more of a psychological stumbling block than more of a life stumbling block. And I think that's the main just issue why millennials have lack of just everything. And sadly enough, America is one of these places where mental health, if you need it, you can't fucking get to it. If you need it, you can't afford it. If you need it, no one fucking cares. So you have to strive, persist, and survive on your own mentally. Technically, I know that's been my case, but for some, this just doesn't pan out. And of course, that's why we have situations of violence, because, and again, it's more of the fault of the person. I'm not saying, these bad instances of mass casualty events is society's fault. I'm saying society has a little bit of blame. But then again, I don't know, if other generations could only understand, which they don't, right? Because everything's all a matter of perspective. Other generations will look at millennials and be like, suck it up, right? But it's just not that fucking easy. And that's what I believe, and this is a really weird fucking video. And if you watch this long, me rant and rave about this, but that's my understanding of the millennial, just situation. And for other generations to keep shitting on millennials, just fucking stop. Okay? You set us up for hardcore failure and psychological malfeasance. And that's not exactly entirely our fault. And I don't know, there's tons, society has many fucking problems, but the main preceding problem is the lack of mental health care, and the accessibility thereof. That's, again, I think why there's opioid epidemic. That's why there's drug epidemics. That's why alcoholism is a thing. Because if you can't get that help, attention, or to that self-respect, some people turn to substance abuse. Some people turn to other forms of abuse, and some people just fucking snap. And again, that's that person's fault. Again, I'm not making any peculiar, specific excuses. I'm just saying that there's a myriad of problems, but the main thing being is the problem of mental health care, and accessibility thereof. And I think that's what millennials need most. I think that's what we've been denied. And I think specific generations forcing us or having us take Ritalin and other forms of psychotropics did more harm than good. And again, this is another problem that precedes the millennial generation. And if there was one thing I had to say in closing with this video, stop pumping your children full of pharmacological psychotropic horseshit. Just because your kid is overly hyper, just because he or she is more precocious, just because they can't pay attention doesn't mean something's wrong with them and that they need to be fixed. Have them, like in my case, for example, my parents set me up with a physical therapist on occasional days. I still remember this. I didn't learn to skip something that's embarrassing till I was fucking 12, okay? So I was set up with a therapist that helped me with that and developed hand-eye coordination. I also saw a therapist, like physical therapist, and like every once a month for like just hand-eye coordination and just to be a kid. And so I think through that way is probably a better way to guide your kid along to the future. Is just psychotropics and pharmacological pills and medications just isn't the case. Fucking stop. You are poisoning children. Again, this is my opinion. I cannot back this up with scientific proof or evidences, but in my case, and from what I've seen and witnessed from other generations of my age, and of course, the unfortunate events in the media and in the 90s and 2000s, mass shooting, you just can't just let your children figure their own way. And with the self-esteem stuff, let them fail. Don't encourage them. Do not always blow smoke up their ass because you're setting them up for failure. The hard truth is what's needed. Don't helicopter parent. Let them discover things on their own. Case in point, when I was a kid, I was obsessed with the fireplace, right? And I kept going to the fireplace, right? And the parents would always pull me away from it. Until one day they said, all right, we're going to let this little bastard figure out the hard way. So, of course, as a little kid, one day I got too close to the fireplace, touched it, and, it was fucking hot. Burnt my hands, right? Right? But then that kid, did I ever touch the fireplace or go close to it ever again? No, I didn't. So children need to learn without helicopter parenting or with the aid of psychotropics or big pharma. So and that would be my just common sense approach. That's my message here. I like kids to be kids. If you can, if your school or schools offer it, physical therapist or school psychiatrist, let them see that and figure their own way out through that way. Do not dope them up. Do not restrain them. Do not blow smoke up their ass. And again, this is probably common sense from other generations or parents, but that's just my take on it. And hopefully this was an interesting kind of video for over 13 minutes. Hopefully you enjoyed. Hopefully you learned something. Hopefully maybe you can apply this. Maybe it answered some questions. If it didn't, there's always the thumbs down. Engagement is engagement, whether it's thumbs up, downs, or comments. Maybe you agree, maybe you disagree in the comments. Maybe I'm wrong and full of shit. Please chime in the comments down below. And or if you haven't, smash that subscribe button. And of course, as always, to kind of grift off what I do here on YouTube, there's a description down below to my subscribe star if you want to donate $1 or $5 a month to support this channel and support me. You also get additional content with that. There's just additional content, whether it's arts, videos. There's going to be a podcast. There's also a Telegram and the secret Discord, which you can gain access to if you do donate. And there's also going to be stories that I'm going to be typing up and putting up there as well. Entertaining, cool stuff. So if that catches your interest, cool. If not, don't worry about it. It's all good. I will see you next time. God bless. Stay safe, stay happy, and I will see you next time.